All right, good Friday to you, 9:49. We continue on AM 1420, The Answer. We have talked to a whole lot of U.S. Senate candidates in the Republican primary for Rob Portman's seat. Bernie Moreno, Jane Timken, Mike Gibbons, J.D. Vance, Josh Mandel. I think we've run the gamut, and I have not yet talked to Mark Pukita. I heard Mark at a speech at a Trump Day event about a week and a half, or a month and a half ago, rather, out in Chesterland. It's the first time I heard Mark speak, but he gave a very impassioned defense of conservative American values and the Constitution. And I said, let's talk to this guy. So let's talk to this guy right now. Mark Pukita, thanks for joining us here on AM 1420, The Answer. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning, Bob. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Mark, I had a candidate for Congress on yesterday, and I said to him, I'm very interested to learn a little bit about you, but nobody knows who you are. You have very low name recognition because I don't see you on TV, I don't see you hear you on radio ads. And I didn't mean it, of course, it is an insult. It's just a reality. You're kind of an unknown player in this field. So I want you to start, before I ask you about policy and platform, just tell us who you are.
So I would be considered an America First, strict constitutionalist, small government citizen candidate. I've never run for office before. Didn't go to an Ivy League school. I'm not a lawyer. I was a business person, built a business, sold it at the end of 2019 or most of it, had a 5-month-old grandson, looked him in the eye and thought there's no way he'll have the opportunity I did to live the American dream. And I saw Rob Portman at about the same time and realized he'd done nothing that he said he was going to do for Ohioans. He got to Washington, rolled over, was a rhino and a never Trumper, and you know that story. So that's why I did it. And I come from a lower middle class background. My parents had outhouses in the backyard when they were kids, and their fathers were both coal miners in northeastern Pennsylvania. So I've lived the American dream, and I'm just probably as angry. I'm sick of politics as usual, and I'm doing the things I believe we need politicians to do.
All right. That's a good backgrounder. Like I said, I kind of wanted to get to know the man a little bit, what your backstory is and why you wanted to run. And it sounds like, you may be one of the last angry men, if you will, the old age. And I'm one of them too, the old adage of being that, because I'm angry too. I'm angry at our liberties being taken away from us. It has only gotten worse as we've gotten 6 months into the Biden administration. Let me start with what I've been talking about all week long. Really ever since the CDC came out with their new guidance. First, they said vaccinate. Joe Biden said very directly, you probably remember this.
If you've been fully vaccinated, you no longer need to wear a mask. Let me repeat. If you are fully vaccinated, you no longer need to wear a mask.
Now this week, the CDC says even if you're fully vaccinated, you need to wear a mask. We're returning to mask mandates virtually all over the country. That kind of flies in the face of the America First liberty you said you represent. So what are your thoughts?
So the mask situation is just ridiculous. The same CDC that's telling us our kids now need to wear masks in school told us that masks were only 2% effective, 2% efficacious. There is no science, Bob. You understand that. This is just a desire to have a symbol on people's faces of the control by the government, submission to the government, and it needs to stop. We're doing this thing. You may have seen it. This contract with the district. It's for school boards to sign. And we had 10 points on it, like, being against critical race theory. We had to add an 11th. We thought masks were done, so we didn't have anything on there about not supporting wearing masks in schools. We had to revise it and add to it because it's come up again. And it's come up again because we're nearing election time, and we want mail-in. We want to make it look like the virus is back. We're having another surge, so they can put us in masks and do mail-in voting and steal another election. It was totally predictable, and people need to wake up to it. And we're trying to wake them up to it.
That's the mask side, Mark Pukita. The more dramatic and, in my opinion, dangerous idea of mandating things in the face of a pandemic is, of course, the vaccine. Joe Biden said, actually, the VA announced like 3 days ago, all VA employees are going to have to be vaccinated or lose their jobs. Joe Biden said this week that he's about to announce, I don't think it's been official yet, but that all federal employees and, all federal employees are going to have to be vaccinated, and visitors to federal buildings are going to have to either be vaccinated or wear masks. Many federal employees are ready to quit their jobs over this. Can and should a government ever be able to compel, to force members of the population, regardless of whether they're public workers or not, what medication they should take, or what preemptive medications like a vaccine that they should have to take?
Absolutely not. I'm 100% for medical freedom, 100%. And this is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, we're seeing that this supposed Delta variant of the virus is, and I put this in quotes, air quotes, breaking through the vaccine. It's almost like, well, I didn't take enough of the vaccine, so the Delta's breaking through. The vaccines aren't anywhere near as efficacious as we believe them to be. I believe that there's been more deaths and injuries from them than is being reported. But, I mean, Bob, we're in an environment right now where you can trust, literally and figuratively, almost nobody but yourself. Everybody is lying to us, especially government.
Mark Pukita, let's talk about some other issues that are currently facing the United States Senate. Specifically, they're dealing right now with an infrastructure bill that the progressives want to grow, and they wanted a $3.5 trillion infrastructure bill that had very little to do with infrastructure. You know about all of that. I want to get your thoughts on that, and I want to get your thoughts on perhaps the biggest issue facing the Senate. And that is, and it kind of, faces everybody in the state, at the state level as well. And that is, of course, voter integrity. The left-controlled Congress wanted to pass the For the People Act, which would have federalized elections and normalized the universal mail-in voting and the ballot harvesting and drop boxes and the other things that they did in November. So your thoughts on if you make it to the Senate, where are you on those core issues?
Well, let's step back a second. I just want to be clear that I believe that the 2020 president election, was fraudulent. And we need to do an audit, a forensic audit with a hand recount, a full recount of that election to restore election integrity. And then I believe we need paper ballots and hand counting going forward. So that's what I would press for, supporting in the Senate. But this is really, from a constitutional standpoint, this is a state issue. And the federal government really has no business in mandating. I'm so sick and tired of mandates, right? I'm so sick and tired of that word. Yeah, right. In mandating mail-in ballots, in mandating ballot harvesting, in mandating long periods of early voting. We, as I like to say, we need to go back to the future. It worked so well, we stopped doing it. And we stopped doing it because Republicans allowed Democrats to continue to steal elections and execute fraudulent plans across the country. It's decentralized, it's multifaceted, and it's got to stop.
That's well said, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. I am so sick and tired of mandates. Mandates are not the tool of a free people. The mandates are not a tool of a republic, a constitutional republic. A mandate is the tool of a socialist dictatorship or a Marxist state. So we cannot have that. Let me ask you, since we're talking about constitutional rights and protections, and this will be kind of the last thing because we're up against it here.
Yep.
I want to ask about the First Amendment.
Right.
We are being silenced on social media, which has become the preferred choice of news for millions and millions and millions of Americans, and they are silencing one side of the political ideological spectrum. And so that's a free speech issue. And then the other thing, Mark, just your thoughts on compelled enforced speech. Because we are being told that we have to call people by things that they're not. We have to use pronouns that do not reflect English grammar, all because of the way somebody feels and these kinds of things. Is free speech a dying? Is it soon to be a lost right in the in the American Constitution?
No, not in my world. So social media I look at as the last refuge, the last place where conservatives can communicate with one another in a free speech manner. And the social media platforms are essentially a 21st century town square, electronic town square. And I've already written a piece of legislation to deal with censorship of conservatives. It deals with censorship of social media entirely. It's out on my website, mark4ohio.com, mark4ohio.com. You can go out there. You'll find it. It's under draft legislation, and it's done in Senate format, Bob. So it's ready to be dropped on the leader's desk, podium, table, whatever, and introduced and sent to committee or voted on. And it goes back to the bar DOJ recommendations on this, which many people don't know exist. And it's a very tight piece of legislation. And I just picked it up, put it into the right format, and cleaned some of the references to Section 230 of the Federal Communications Act.
Right.
And it will take care of the issues. And it doesn't regulate. What it does is allows us to sue. Now, on the compelled speech, I mean, let's face it, them, zer, who are we kidding? This is all made up nonsense.
But
It's
yet
made up science.
employees of woke companies are being forced to use that or lose their jobs. Students are being forced to use that. Teachers are being forced to use this nonsensible language or lose their jobs or lose their place in classes and so forth.
Yeah, we need to add discrimination by political view to our, discrimination laws across the country and federally. You discriminate against me because I won't do something that you think I should do, and I should be able to sue you as an employer for doing that. We are being discriminated against as conservatives. We are being fired at from every direction 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we have got to fight back. I feel like I'm the only fighter in this race because I'm willing to stand up and take positions. I'm the only one that's talking primarily about policy. There's some policy discussion going on. But as conservatives, we've got to put a stake in the ground. We've got to say, this is what I believe, and I'm not going to be shaken from it. And then do it.
Mark, I've got to jump in here because I'm out of time. In fact, I'm past our time, but I will say this. I would like to see where you stand compared to some of the others in this race in a debate format, and I know there are some plans in the works about holding some debates, so hopefully we can hear that and learn more about you and compare and contrast with some of the other candidates.
I can't wait.
But for now, Mark Pukita, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. Your website again is Mark for Ohio, correct? Is that where people can learn more?
Mark, the number 4ohio.com, correct.
Got it. Thank you, Mark Pukita. We'll be right back.